Today, we are talking about how to get more done and how to get more off your plate so that you can carve out time to actually focus on fundraising and the mindset shift, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, that it takes to be able to do this. Because especially when you're in that startup phase, it's so easy to get into that, like, I can just do it all. I'm just doing it all. I'm doing it all. I'm doing it all. But at least for me, that led to severe burnout, and it also stunted my growth. That is the reality. We can only do so much. There's only so many hours in the day, and it just isn't sustainable. So we are going to talk about one of my favorite books today. If you are looking for some summer reading, not that any of you have time for that, but if you are, Dan Sullivan's book, Who, Not How. I want to touch base on that and reflect on some of the ways that I do that I think would be really helpful as you're going out to raise money, because I've talked to quite a few people in the last month, 2 months, who are still talking about raising money, but haven't actually started doing it yet. So what are the reasons for that? It's either they don't feel prepared, they're not confident, or they're too busy. And it's really easy to be too busy when you have something that is maybe a little intimidating or you don't feel ready for. It's very easy to use busy as the excuse. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So let's talk about who, not how. This has been really relevant for me lately. I'm working on a couple bigger things I'm not ready to talk about yet. I will in like a month or two. And I found myself in this position of, again, I think you guys know if you've listened to any of my podcasts that like lifestyle and balance and not working too much are super important to me at this phase of my life. That's like my priority. At the same time, though, I love creating. I love business. I love growth. And I'm constantly having to like slow myself down and just question, like, should, be more selective with what I do and what I don't do in order to not have work take over my life like I have done in the past. So this topic of who, not how has been especially relevant for me lately. And I've had to kind of sit back and go, okay, I want to do all these things. And the question should not be, how am I going to do them? How am I going to do them? The question is, who am I going to get to help me do these things or to take all this stuff off my plate so that I can shift my focus towards these things that I really want to do? So time, money, none of these things should be reasons that we don't go after things that we want to do, but it takes a mindset shift. There's plenty of money out there. If you're looking for funding, there is money out there and you can get it. Where there is a will, there is a way. If you want to take on more projects, if you want to see yourself grow bigger, you can also do that, but you can't do it all by yourself. You've got to get people helping you. And one mistake that I'm seeing people make is they're getting people to help them on the fundraising part, or they're looking for people to help them actually raise the money. I strongly believe that you as the founder need to be the one out selling your company, pitching investors, answering investors' questions. I think it's super important for you to be doing that part of it. So the question is, what else can you get off your plate so that you can put more focus on that? Because again, it's really easy to go, I'm so busy doing all the doing, running the company, getting it going, trying to develop my product, trying to sell my product. I don't have time to go raise funding. I'm going to, but you never actually start pitching. And if you listen to last week's episode about, paying the bills and all that good stuff, there's definitely stress that comes along with dragging that out. Like if you do need to raise money, it's most likely because you are at your maximum with where you're at funding wise or the level of risk you're willing to take. And you do need money. So you might be on a little bit of a timeline that you need to make it happen by a certain date. So how are you going to make sure you have time to do that? Because it is time consuming. Raising money is not just a couple emails. I mean, you got to most likely unless you are that, just rare, high growth, crazy, startup that just has this unbelievable, market potential and everyone's begging to be, invest in your company. Again, not the normal story. Then it's going to take a lot of no's to get there. You got to find a lead investor and you can totally do it, but you have to carve out time and have bandwidth to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to keep pushing it to the bottom of the pile. And it can be especially hard when you're already in business and running and you are wearing all the sales and marketing hats and all that stuff. So, okay, here is what that looks like. What I like to do is I like to sit down. And I think, I've never formally done this. You hear people say, write down every single thing you do in a 2-week period. If you can do that, go for it. I just can't. I don't know. I've just never officially done that. And I haven't had to. And I've still been able to get tons of stuff off my plate. But if you're able to do that, I think it's a great exercise in theory to do that. Write down everything you do, put it into buckets like, okay, I'm doing these things that are finance related. What's all the personal stuff you're doing, right? Like grocery shopping, all these things that take time. How can you get some of that stuff off your plate? And well, I know it can be, you might be sitting there going, but I don't even have money to do X, Y, Z. How am I supposed to hire someone to take all this stuff off my plate? So again, it might be small tasks, but you're going to have to get something off your plate. Or what can you say no to temporarily to be able to open up some bandwidth to be able to even get some stuff off your plate, right? So some of the things I think if you are in the position right now where, you are either pre-revenue or you're generating revenue, but you're wearing a lot of hats, your product development, your marketing, your sales, you're out talking, trying to sell your product. Those are the things you should be focused on. If you're busy doing, admin type tasks or finance type tasks or even research or, finding sales leads, like anything that doesn't require you being the one talking, look at getting those tasks off your plate. I did a whole episode on virtual assistants. I think, again, it's a weird term because it sounds like it's not a human, especially with AI today. But there are real people who have very specific skill sets and might be able to just spend 3 to 5 hours a week taking something off your plate. And if you can get a handful of those things off your plate, administrative tasks or, research type things, finding sales leads, that kind of stuff, it can open up the space for you to be able to go and pitch investors or even researching investors. Like you don't necessarily need to be the one doing that or researching the background of the investor that you're going to pitch. Who can you have help you with that part of it? You need to be the one out there pitching, but maybe you don't need to be the one doing the research on the investor. So I think really breaking down, what are you currently spending your time doing? And then what are all the components of fundraising? And just start with one thing you can get off your plate. Just focus on taking one and then another one and then another one, but break it down and really try to shift your mindset. Not how am I going to go out and raise money? Who am I going to get to help me to take some stuff off of my plate so that I have the bandwidth and I do not procrastinate or delay on raising funding? Because it is a numbers game and it takes some time and it takes some effort. It doesn't just, happen like that super quick. So anyway, I've done that in the past couple months. I took on another project. And at first I was like, oh man, how am I going to get this done? And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do all the doing. And I basically broke down the project and I got a big chunk of it off my plate so that I'm just doing the important part that is important to me. And I say important, it's all important. But the part that is most important that I do, which is the more like actual me talking, customer facing type thing. And then how can I get all the back end stuff covered? Somebody else doing it and getting that off my plate. So I find, we learn these lessons, we hear these things. And, I read this book years ago, and I still have to remind myself every once in a while when, I find myself taking on more than maybe I should or could or wanted to. And I'm at that stage of my life where I am like not willing to sacrifice my health, my time with family and all that stuff. So it really comes down to who, not how. And I think it is the way entrepreneurs are able to grow. You got to be able to let go of some stuff. 80% done 80% well, not by somebody else, is better than you doing it 100%. And that's one of the hardest things for me as a perfectionist to let go of. But I have gotten very comfortable with that because it's the only way to do more and not sacrifice, all your time and end up working 24 hours a day. So if you're interested in reading that book, Who, Not How by Dan Sullivan, great read, great mindset shift as you're going into fundraising. If you found that you're procrastinating or taking longer than you should, I highly recommend looking at everything else you're doing and try to find a few things you can get off your plate to open up space to go out and raise money. So would love to hear from you. If you're struggling with this and you're not sure what to do, happy to hop on a call. Email me, hello@seedmoneypodcast.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can book a call in my LinkedIn. I'm happy to sit down and chat and go through where you're at and see if I can help. Okay, till next time. See ya.